Thanks to welcome me in this meeting. So my scope of work in Nissan is basically from digital and connected services up to everything which goes to warranty and total customer satisfaction from an IS point of view, which means that I have the whole range of the customer experience within those mobile technology. So the very interesting point from my colleague here on Delta experience is obviously we are different, but we are the same. Okay, we are different because yes, we don't have a blank sheet of paper, but globally, Nissan is a big corporation. We have the alliance with Renault, which means that it's even bigger. When we negotiate and when we have this type of discussion on contract, you know, the power of negotiation is there, and certainly the speed is a bit probably not the same as well. That's the downside of it. But really, we are as well the same because fast implementation, fast everything in the auto industry right now is what makes up a success, okay? And we can measure that only when we see the number of people reconnecting to our services from our in-car experience. So connected services is about having two types of service. One is about infotainment in the car. The other one is about having services delivered to the customer in advance or ahead of his desire or his needs. So one of them is predictive maintenance, as an example. So all of this needs a massive telecom capability, needs end-to-end services from the vehicle unit or the website or whatever you have in front of the customer up to the data which is stored somewhere in Japan or the data which is stored somewhere in an outsourced database. So I think we face more or less the same challenge, but definitively with a bigger corporation, the problems are not exactly where they were for Tesla.
Very good. Thank you very much. Come back here and join us, and then we'll get into a panel discussion shortly.
Sure,
I'd sit there just for the moment. The other panelist is Richard Harding, who currently has been working at Heathrow in a number of roles as an external consultant who's clearly been captured by the Heathrow establishment and set to work. I think his career is best described as a good emerging zigzag, because it's between substantial times in the old economy and banks, substantial times with startups, substantial times with more established players like AOL. When he then decided to set up his own consultancy, as I said, one of his earlier clients was Heathrow, who promptly proved to be pretty sticky clients and have had him in a number of different roles. So here we are on the outskirts of Heathrow, and I'd invite Richard now to set the scene of the environment he's within, and you'll hear his mobility requirements are met in a slightly different fashion, but the underlying issues, I suspect, are much the same. Richard, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, so it was very interesting to hear Jude talk about you need to get this right. And what was struck for me was the fact that at Heathrow, until we got this right, and originally Heathrow wasn't just Heathrow Airport, we managed 6 or 8 other airports here in the UK, but we had a very complex estate. And before we could start to really leverage the benefits of mobility, we needed to make sure we had this type of thing right, making sure we had the contracting thing right, but equally making sure that actually with our staff that work out there on the airfield or our ones at head office, and you've got to think that there are actually very different type of roles that people perform, that unless you have a service that enables you to get devices fixed, get them out to them, get them procured, get them actually, get the account set up correctly right, your workforce isn't working properly for you. And we had a lot of inefficiencies back in the day. Now, only through following a solution like this have we been able to drive those away, take that headache away, and for us now as an organisation to actually go beyond that and start to think about actually how do we use mobility properly? How do we use those devices? How do we put the right tooling on top of them? It's not just about email for us. It's not just about ERP systems. This is about delivering the right type of mobile application for, I don't know, an engineer out there at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to find the right fault that's been identified by an inspector. That you can only get to that once you get this type of stuff right. Otherwise, you're always going to be ending up in issues where your staff don't have the devices that they actually need, or they're not working in a way that they actually should be. So it was a really interesting piece from Duke, and I quite really look forward to the panel discussion now and hearing what, not only from the questions from you guys from the floor, but to hear actually from Zandrine how they've been able to move beyond that and how they're really leveraging mobility.
Brilliant, thank you. Just one point for clarity. Your mobility is underwritten or overwritten by a 4G structure that covers all of Heathrow and surrounding environments.
That's right. So we actually have our own private 4G network out there. We also have the common carriers. They're all out there as well. But so that we can have mission critical services and provide that to the workers that are there. So today you'll have 70,000 people that are working out there at the airfield providing services to the customer coming through. Of which only 6,000 staff actually work for Heathrow. So it's a very much a federated sort of service that's provided with over 900 different companies actually working there. Now we provide a 4G network ourselves so that they can connect their infrastructure, their devices to our infrastructure. We can provide levels of resilience and SLAs, etc. around that.
If the panelists would like to all come up. I'm assuming these microphones require activating, or do we activate them ourselves?
Don't know. Hello. Yeah. No.
Hello. They're working. First, quick question to set the panel discussion going. The panel discussion is supposedly about a managed mobility evolution, but I sense really it ought to be called a managed mobility revolution. Because really the capabilities now that mobile smartphones access is the prime means of access of the internet now, according to statistics from Ofcom in the UK, and I guess it's much the same across a lot of Europe. It's really a managed mobility revolution, and you really do need to tackle it in a pretty determined, rapid fashion, or you'll get behind the game. Is it revolution or is it evolution? Very briefly.
I don't think you've got much choice, to be honest. One of the things we think about, we have, I mentioned 6,000 staff work for Heathrow themselves, of which about 4,500 are our security officers. They're the guys that when you go through staff search, so you go through search, they're looking for liquid sharps, etc. Now, traditionally, we never provided them with even AD accounts. They weren't on our systems, etc. They literally would go to a rest room, they would get their schedules, they would go on to shift, they'd come back off. But what we were finding was that actually these guys were bringing their own mobile devices, they were doing their own shift swapping using Facebook groups, they were doing, so it gets into the wild before you know it. So you absolutely, there is no choice now. You have to provide the right services, you have to provide the right tooling, so you can enable the right type of conversations to go on. Otherwise you're going to end up into a whole world of issues around security, support, exactly.
So it's more revolutionary than evolutionary, says he?
On our side, I would say that in the auto industry, we are at the moment of shift, because we are coming from a traditional way of selling a car, traditional way to interact with the customer, traditional way to let's say, manage the relationship with our dealers, where we have now cars like electric cars, where the brand owns the relationship with the customer, where we try to have a seamless journey, where we are always in contact with the customer. So for us, it's a revolution. We have also the same type of discussion with our internal employee or our field force about mobility and so on. But this is something which is probably where is the evolution. For us, the revolution is on the customer front.
Right, okay. Duke, looking more broadly than this particular client.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I engage a lot of different types of clients in just about every vertical imaginable. In the beginning of every engagement, I have a long list of questions that I use to kind of narrow down exactly where the pain is for that customer. And then I try to make that, or bridge that gap between what I know from the mobility space and maybe a greater understanding of their specific place within their vertical. And I think that's really the key. You know, the automotive industry is going to have a completely different take on things from, you know, healthcare or from high tech or whatever. So I think the challenge there is to bridge those solutions to make sense for that customer at that point in time. So
And slightly more